Hi there, Dave Rawlings here of the London Longsword Academy, and today I'd like to talk to you about why I don't talk about flex. This could be a longer conversation than any of us are ready for. So first of all, the reason I don't talk about flex in most of my reviews, be it small sword, side sword, sabre, rapier, feather, is very simple, and that is based on experience. And I get to fence an awful lot of people. And if two people come together and they have a weapon of identical length to each other, but one of them has 4 inches more flex than the other person, albeit they both think that they have safe flex, the person with the 4 inches more flex is more inclined to believe that they can keep their partner safer while they enter with more vigor or with more confidence. And then that means that they impact against someone who doesn't have the same extent of flex as theirs, and then potentially injuries can happen. Certainly discomfort can happen. So I think if we're going to talk about flex, we really need to look at standardization, because if you have differing qualities of flex, then you have that issue as discussed. If you want to go out and talk to all the manufacturers and go, in order to be on our competitions, you need to have exactly this degree of flex on any weapon of said length, and we all have weapons of the same length, please go for it. I do not have a problem with standardization. If you want to do it, you do it. It'll be your competition, your rules. But this is why I don't talk about it very much, and why I prefer the concept of control out of courtesy. Now, this leads us into a conversation about tournaments. And one of the things that was said to me about tournaments was that we cannot manage people when they come in full of adrenaline. We can't tell them not to hit as hard as they are, or not to do this as much as they are. And I'd like to point out to you that's bollocks. And I'm going to say this is bollocks, not because of my opinion, but because of your actions over the last 5-10 years. And take this as the compliment that it is meant. Those of you, at least in the UK, who I have seen organising competitions, have by large parts slowly reduced, not necessarily through rule sets, but through environment, through expectations of the participants of the tournament, through the judges, have reduced the amount of vigour that the majority of competitors are bringing into their competitions. And you have managed it, and you are continuing to do so, and long may you do so, because it's looking better for it. So I consider I won that argument, because you proved you can do it, and you are doing it, but well fucking done. Great stuff. So we can control the amount of vigour that people bring to a competition. And I think this is an important thing for us, because I think that to some extent we've started off running in HEMA because we wanted to prove ourselves rather than walking. So by this I mean simply that we've gone for, we need to build tanks, we need to have the most protective gear, we need to have the most flex. We'll have arguments over whether a shorter sword or a longer sword, and these are not new discussions, and we'll have them again in 20 years time, and that's not wrong. We should continue having these discussions. But we're working out ways of making the equipment more protective, rather, and also guilty by the way, rather than trying to work out how to make the fences more respectful of each other. And this is about creating an environment where we do not have to say to someone who is grappling, you can't slam someone down on the floor. A grapple must be treated with the same courtesy as a thrust must be delivered. It must be dealt with the same courtesy as a cut must be delivered. And both cut and thrust must be expected to be delivered with courtesy in order to keep your partner safe and to recognise the restraint that they are using on you. There are still people in the tournament circuit who will just go out there and lump the other person, and that's getting less, but it is still there. And I think that it's quite right and healthy to ostracise those people, because it allows us to create an environment by which we can gauge skill over force. No more punishment beatings, in other words. But again, I think this is something that the HEMA community is doing. So if we go away from this idea of having the maximum coverage, the most padding, our knees must be super padded, our elbows must have hard plates, this kind of thing. By all means have those things, but have them as incidentals. Almost the idea with my thoc gloves where the back plate has broken. Yeah, it's broken, but it broke in keeping my hands safe. It'd be nice to have that attitude towards things, that we can have lighter armour with something that has a degree of disposability to it, because it shouldn't get broken, but if it gets broken on that one time it kept me safe. Therefore, it can be lighter, and therefore I can replace it. You imagine a knee protector, you just kind of like, there you go, well, that broke. It was an accident on your part. No worries, here we go. New one next time, okay? If we have this attitude of lowering the intensity of all our training, I think if we walk it back, we will have better and better competitions for it. And in order somewhat to back this up, I'm going to address what I think is a rather contentious issue, and this is the idea of low and no gear fencing, which, again, I recognise for the contentious issue it is. So there are a lot of videos at the moment of absolutely no protective gear fencing going on. So no mask, no gloves, no gorget, nothing. And what I would like to point out on this is I don't have a strong opinion. You know, people cycle across fucking London, and I'm pretty sure that's more dangerous than what these people are doing, because they're withholding the thrust. So there's less danger of people doing this. It's all cuts. Yes, there's risk. There is an element of risk, but you can see that on the large part they're mitigating this. And it's not something that I would do in my club, although the temptation is so there. But I don't believe it's the right choice for us, and I want to keep people that much safer. And I say that from the viewpoint of somebody who perfectly feels that you can drill something if you are both completely in control of your facilities and willing to just kind of go, oh, I am going to place the technique. Oh, you're placing it, I can move it. Look, we can eat with knives and forks next to each other and not fucking die. You can do this if you're willing to show courtesy and balance. Your expectations of how you deliver a technique and how you react to a technique are the factors that are taking away from safety. So again, we create the environment in which the safety discussion's there. One of the main things, don't point in the fucking eyes. There's a good way of not getting stabbed in the eyes. Don't do anything in a manner that's going to jerk up and put things in the eyes. So, going back to the concept of no gear fencing, however, I don't think this is the right choice for me, but I see why people are doing it, and I see the appeal, and I see also the amount of skill that their decisions are putting in place. Their decisions are putting some excellent blade play in place. Now, one of the things that people were saying about, or some people have said about the hazard of using feathers or swords against each other when you're just doing sparring in t-shirt and gloves and this kind of thing, is that, well, you still get the little shards of metal that sort of like have the potential to rip the skin and this kind of thing. And well, one of the things is when you reduce the intensity because you've lowered the safety equipment you've got, you're not making the same impacts on the blades, so you're not deteriorating the blades by the same extent because your techniques are so much more carefully placed. So you're not smashing them up, you're not getting these same degrees of flex. Flex as in F-L-E-C-K-S in this case. So there is a place for this low intensity sparring where you have skill and you have placement. I would still insist on doing it with a fencing mask for the reasons I've said, but again, it is showing the plays so nicely. And one of the things I want you to look at is, if you watch these people play, look how they are interacting to the blades, and look at how aware they are of where the opponent's sword is, and how when their swords touch together, that people are almost listening, sensing for the glisten, this little clash of the blades, the lightest clash or the potential of the blades clashing together. And look how much that is changing how the play looks and how good that looks. This is not to say that I feel it's what we should do, but it's what we should observe, and it's something that we should try and meet from this level of intensity, meet it somewhere down the line so we can see that quality of play established with more protective equipment, but light protective equipment. That's it really. Have a discussion, have a think. What I'd like you to do is, if you're not involved in competition, comment on this, be confident in your opinion. We don't just ask painters to talk about art. We ask people who enjoy art to talk about art. We don't just ask butchers for the taste of meat. Those of you who like meat have an opinion. Those of you who dislike meat have an opinion. You're allowed to have an opinion on this. You don't have to take part in competitions. You don't have to have a HEMA ranking. You can admire stuff for the beauty. You can extrapolate your information from other avenues and bring it to this conversation. But a conversation about how we have safety, but also how we explore the art of swordsmanship, I think is very well placed to start having now. Thank you for indulging me, and I'll hopefully speak to you in the comments. Take care.